Josh, yeah?
I I do it to the computer, yeah.
Okay, guys, welcome. This is my first ever thing on my YouTube channel for the Chimp Paradox, and I've chosen to call this the Chimp Chat. So it'll be segmented under the channel headings in a playlist, most probably. And hopefully, I'm going to get to talk to people who know more about the chimp or who want to know more about the chimp. And I'd like to welcome my first ever guest here, which is a man who's been very influential in me producing this video. And his name is Josh Holloran for the Mirror Signal podcast. Welcome, Josh.
Thank you very much, Nigel, for the invite. I'm looking forward to this chimp chat.
Great, Josh, and it's great to catch up with you. We've had a bit of a chat for maybe 6 or 12 months now, really, isn't it? Since we first met. How long was it, Josh?
Yeah, I think it must be coming near 12 months since we first started talking, and then you came onto my podcast
Yeah.
and enlightened me about the chimp.
Mhm.
And do you know, after we done that episode, I bought the book and I keep picking it up, and then work takes over and it goes back down again. And I've not really read anything since our episode. Just life gets in the way. But now I'm at a point where I'm like, no, I need to start doing something for me
Mhm.
and my development. So yeah, it's come at a good time, I think, to start looking inwards instead of trying to do everything out there, if that makes sense.
Oh, that totally makes sense, Josh. And that's how once I discovered the Chimp Paradox, that was the main influence on me because I wanted to do something for myself, and I could see that I needed to do things in life, and I couldn't do them because I didn't know what was holding me back. And once you find that key to that, then it's a great way forward in life. Josh, you've actually read a book that I haven't read called, oh, you said you read it a while ago, and some of it might resonate with the chimp, and it was called Thinking Fast and Slow. I have seen it, Josh. What can you remember when you read that?
So that one, it was about two different parts of the brain,
Mhm.
and you've got your fast part that's almost reactive.
Yeah.
And from what I remember of the book, that one can be quite easily either manipulated
Hmm.
or can almost deceive yourself at times. And then you've got the slow part of the brain, which takes longer to process, but it's the one we should be using, the one that we should be listening to. And if we can control that one and minimize the fast thinking, then we can make better decisions through everything, really.
That's so interesting, Josh. There's so many parallels there with the chimp paradox, but in what Steve has developed here is that there are three parts of the brain, but the way you've described those two parts there, Josh, that's very similar to the two parts of the brain which he describes in the book was called the chimp and the human. So, did the book go into any techniques of managing those, Josh? Did you find any advantage from reading it? Sorry, have you implemented anything of that into your life?
The I can't really quote specifics from the
Oh
book. It
no.
was a while ago, but the
Yeah.
understanding that it gave me
Good.
of my own brain and my own reaction to situations,
Yeah.
a lot of things really stood out. Whether it was our biases as people and whether it was like statistics and data, we can almost see something and make a conclusion straight away, and that conclusion isn't always correct. And I think it often comes up in a lot of books, like you put two shapes that are slightly different, a line,
Hmm.
and either side of the line is a different shape, and the line in the middle looks a different size, and it's tricking your brain. It's exactly the same
I
size,
see.
but
Yeah.
it looks different. And that things like that really stood out because it's obvious when you see it, when you know it,
Hmm.
it's obvious. But when you don't see it or you're not looking for it, it's not obvious. And the way it made me understand my brain and why we make the decisions we do,
Hmm.
we think we've got this freedom that decision we make is ours. And it's not. It's anything, shops, social media, mainstream media,
Yeah.
everything. There's a reason the wording is used, the colors are used,
Hmm. Yeah.
everything. And it's that part of the brain that they're targeting for us to make those, I guess, sometimes impulsive decisions. And it's
Exactly.
it's all structured around manipulating the brain.
Mhm.
And it becomes quite frustrating when you see it and you're like, you start to understand why and what's happening.
Interesting. Yeah.
And it just kept me fascinated and then led me on a path, a little bit of psychology and understanding what's going on there. And obviously making the links to try and help my learners
Hmm.
and myself if I'm in high pressure situations.
Hmm. Very interesting, that Josh. Yeah, it's as you say, it's becoming aware, and I think of what's happening in your mind is where the real key lies. And I think that is, to me, that is the gift that Steve Peters has given well, to me anyway, and to any people who take the time to read that book and learn that model. I, you know, Josh, I've been a driving instructor for 30 years and I've been driven all my life. So driving is my life. So I have to compare it to pretty much to driving. And if you think about a car, Josh, we get a pupil in a car, don't we? Do they need to know about fuel injection? Do they need to know about crankshafts? Do they need to know about clutches, gearboxes? They don't need to know the intricate workings of that. And similarly, we don't need to know the intricate workings of the brain as much as somebody like Professor Peters does. But what he's done, Josh, is actually allowed me and people who read it to manage our brains and get different results in our life by just understanding there's just three parts. So to me, it's like a clutch, a gear stick, and a accelerator, and say a steering wheel. All those mechanical power. Your pupil doesn't need to know that, but once they master those skills and understand how to manage the power of the engine under the bonnet and how it connects to the wheels through operating pedals in front of them, three, say, maximum of four items, then they can make that car do whatever they want. And similarly, once you know this model, you can actually change your reactions in life because you understand what part of the brain you are coming from at any one time. And that is an absolute gift to me, definitely. And I thank Steve Peters for making it that simple that somebody like me can change their thoughts, feelings, and actions, and correspondingly results in life. So, is it similar to what you and the thinking and fast and slow, Josh? Did you must have when you read that, you've some parts of that have resonated with you, and have you taken any of that forwards into your life?
Yes, there's that side of it, the thinking fast and slow. And then, as we spoke about a few weeks back, I done a mindfulness course.
Yeah.
It was last year. And again, that was very similar. It was controlling our thoughts and our emotions, a slightly different approach to what really is the same outcome from the way I understand it. But what you said there with the car and the brain
Mm-hmm.
really now has got me really intrigued
Mm-hmm.
because it makes so much sense. Like the car is this big complex thing.
Yeah.
So is our brain, more so our brain.
Got it, Bob.
Uh, and understanding how to control it, we can do much better. And obviously, the more you know of the car,
Mm-hmm.
the more competent of a driver you become. And then the more intricate details you get, the more of an elite level driver you're going to become.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see that same thing when you can control your thoughts and decision making from the brain.
Mm-hmm.
But absolutely, when I read Thinking Fast and so I think it was around the time I was training to be a driving instructor.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always been a bit of a part of my teaching, and that is we can see when our learners are acting on emotion
Yeah.
and not logic. There's a big lorry driving towards us.
Mm-hmm.
So the reactive thing to do, the emotional thing to do is there's a big scary truck. I'm going to steer away from it.
Yeah.
So we end up on a curb or in a ditch.
Yeah.
Or the other side, again, the irrational, well, there's a truck there, I'm going to watch it. So as you know, we start driving towards the truck or the bus or
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Yeah.
Either way, at that moment in time, seemed like a logical decision for the driver.
Yeah.
because that's what their brain was telling them. There's a big scary object here, must watch it.
Hmm.
Or there's a big scary object here, must avoid it.
Yep.
And then we stop and we have a chat and we try and unpick that. And then I try and change what I say. And when I see this situation arising again, it's like, look, let's control our speed and focus on the gap, focus on where we want the car to go. And
Yep.
we're now eliminating that irrational fear of, I must steer away.
Mhm.
So I've always tried to understand that and how our emotions make the decision before our logic.
What a wonderful analogy that, Josh. Absolutely. And I always, as I'm listening to somebody talk and I'm seeing something in real life, my brain thinks in chimp terms at all times now, because I've got that used to using the model. And there were some wonderful analogies there, the steering away that the chimp can see danger. So what Steve, right in the beginning of the book, he explains it very, very well that when we are formed, even within our mother's wombs, Josh, two brains start to form. And I think he just state within the days of of the embryo forming, the two brains form then, and they both from our genes. We inherit both of them from our genes. There's one logical part of the brain, and there's one more irrational part of the brain. Yes, and as we develop, they're both there. And one is the chimp, what Steve classes it as the chimp, and the other is the human. The human, it's very good to think of it in computer speeds, Josh, because the human was the logical part of the brain, which you talked about there. If you can get the pupil back into the logical reasoning sort of brain, then you'll get more reaction. But the chimp is the best way to describe it is an innate, primitive survival system built within us all. Okay. And it's got us to the human race to where we are now, Josh. So it's a very, very important part of the brain. And to our great, 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 and I'm sure a lot more great ancestors, it was an absolute essential part of daily life. Yeah. Unfortunately, well, I don't know what I say. Unfortunately, we wouldn't be here with it now. So fortunately, we've got it, but unfortunately, we don't require it to the extent that our ancient ancestors needed just to survive. But nevertheless, it's still there within every one of us. Steve has actually said to me when I was talking with him one day, he said it's Nigel, he described it as your inept best friend. And that's what it's like. And I thought that was absolutely spot on because it's there, it's trying to look after you, but it's overprotective and it won't let you step out of the comfort zone. It doesn't want you to get into danger. Hence why it's taking over the pupil and steering away from the big scary truck. It's a survival system, Josh, yeah? So that's what turns the pupil away from the truck.
So we're gonna delve a little bit now. I like this, and
Mhm.
it really fascinates me. Do you think then we struggle to manage it because we're not used to managing it from that young age? Because I know now I'm more protective of my children than my parents probably was of me, and you
Hmm.
go back a few more generations. Kids probably had to assess risk themselves,
Yeah.
whereas these days, not so much. Get down out of that tree before you fall and hurt yourself. Whereas I'd have been left to climb it, but if you hurt
Yeah.
yourself, you're taking yourself to hospital.
Yeah.
Um,
Maybe so.
so do you think that it's becoming more relevant now that we do need to be aware of it and control it because we're maybe not used to it? It interests me as to
Yeah.
you see people struggle with it. Has
Mm.
it always been a case that we've struggled, or has it been we've got out of practice of managing it?
Well, it's time here to add the other piece of the brain in now, then, Josh, and this is called the computer. Okay,
Okay.
because there's a three parts in the chimp paradox: the human, the chimp, and the computer. I'll just go over the speeds which they all work at the moment, Josh. I think it makes it more relevant if we discuss that now, or before we go into the relevant parts of it. Okay, the human, which is the logical part of the brain, which I think we're in at the moment, and we're having a good conversation on this Friday evening, and we're enjoying talking on a subject that's passionate to us both. There's logic, there's reason in there, and that's the human. But unfortunately for us, that he runs at times one. Yeah, so x1 speed. The chimp runs at times five. Okay. And when I first went to that self-development seminar in West Ham in London, and I got hypnotized for 3 days. And I come home and I got the Chimp Paradox from a book. I decided I was going to start changing my thinking after the self-development seminar. And I bought the best book they give me in Waterstones on thinking. And when I opened it, the first page I opened it on, it said the chimp is 5 times more powerful than a human, and the same quality is in the chimp part of the brain. It can overpower the human at any one time, Josh. Yeah. I'll just before I just come back to that, I'll just mention the computer, which is an auto-functioning reference center within the brain, which runs at times 20. So the chimp can't even get a look in if we're operating on the computer. If you can operate, the more you can operate on the computer, Josh, the more successful in life you will be. The next best thing is to control the chimp and operate off the human on logic. You'll be successful, but it'll be a bit slower. The computer is absolutely the be all and end all of this system, because when we're formed in the brain, the computer is empty. When we're formed in the womb, sorry, got my terminology wrong there, where the computer is empty. And unfortunately for us, the chimp and the human program that computer. They put the input in it as we get life experiences. Yep. So your chimp is looking into that computer, Josh, for past references of the danger that it's seeing. So the chimp immediately, we got the defense mechanism within us, receives, rightly so, receives every bit of information from our five senses. Okay? What we see, everything constantly. It's doing it now. You could hear a noise downstairs. You'd be thinking there was a burglar coming in or something like that. That's the chimp. It's circulating all the way. It's getting in from the all the information in from the senses. If a saber-toothed tiger come jumping out of great ancestors, it would get the chimp would just kick in and get your hell out of the way. So it gives a three-choice reaction. I'm sure you've heard about it: fight, flight, or freeze. That's the chimp in its
Yep.
innate, absolutely powerfulest form. If there is immediate danger, it takes over. The human and the computer don't get a look in. Your chimp does one of those three things. Yep. Whatever it perceives as best. You've got no choices, Josh. Yep. You step out into the road with your headphones in, the car's coming at you, the chimp just takes over in a second. That's what it's there for. Okay. However, when you stood up to ask to do a presentation, what does the chimp detect? If in your younger years you stood up and done a presentation in school and maybe you felt embarrassed because the words didn't come out right, or somebody took the mickey out of you or whatever, and the chimp says, "Don't ever stand up and do that." You are totally embarrassed, you got upset about it, and the chimp installs into the computer with emotion. Yeah, that was a nice little nod there, a bit of an aha moment for you there, Josh. Right? What did you think then?
Yes, I can see that when I asked about is it more relevant now,
Yeah,
then it depends on that person's lived
exactly.
experience
So it's no more relevant
from
now than what it
from
was years
childhood.
ago, Josh. Yeah. It's the same. It's an ancient
Yes.
system, Josh, within us. It's
Yeah.
it's primitive, and it thinks completely different from you. But once you can grasp that it is a system within your head that thinks differently, completely differently from you, from what you really want, Josh. There's a tale in the book called Phineas Gage, isn't it? The man's name was, and he worked on the Western Railways in Australia, America, sorry, and he had to hit these pins into the railway to secure the rails down. Yeah, and he was a wonderful man, and he got great responsibility. And he hit one of these pins, and it shot out, and it went straight through his eye. Yeah, and the human part of the brain is this frontal cortex here. Yeah, that's where the human is, the prefrontal cortex. And the pin shot straight through his prefrontal cortex. How the hell the man survived? But he survived. But he become the most aggressive, beast-like thing you've ever seen in your life, because the human was removed from the brain and the chimp just took over completely. And Steve gives that example at the front of the book, Phineas Gage. So we can see that if that is removed, Josh, then there is, and if there is damage to any of the prefrontal cortex, then the chimp doesn't have well, it's in heaven then, isn't it? It's taking over. But you must remember though that the human also programs the computer, and that programs it with logic, Josh.
Based on the speeds, if the chimp is at times 5 and the human's at times 1, is your computer being filled with more chimp than human? How does
No,
that
no.
work?
Times one and times five, Josh, is just on everyday sort of life as it receiving the information. Yeah. So the chimp receives the information. It looks into if there's no imminent danger, it'll then, for a split second, and this is where Steve discovered it as he was brain scanning people over the years when he was a clinical psychologist. He was noticing these little flashes across the brain. He could see electronic flashes on the scans where the one part of the brain was electronically linking to the other part. And this is how he discovered the Chimp paradox. And then he studied it and he understood that that part was looking into that part for a reference. So he's seen the information coming in from the senses to that part, the amygdala, shall we call it? Yeah. And then it's looking into I think it's called the hippocampus. I am not a psychologist. Yeah. I'm Nigel Richards, the bloody driving instructor, you know. I just know, but I do know what he's on about, you know, so I can't go into the terms. And he's seen it looking in there. So he knew it was looking for references and it was past references. And if it looked in and seen a past reference was well, he presumed he couldn't actually see this, could he? But he presumed if there was a past reference, then immediately that chimp would then start giving black and white negative thoughts into your body, releasing all sorts of chemicals to prevent you going into that situation again, you see, Josh, yeah? So the key to the first thing when I read this book, Josh, I read it twice and then I started contacting the Chimp Paradox team. This was back in 2012, 13, around there. And I went to wanted to understand more, and I'm not really a reader. I'm a visual kinesthetic learner, a VK learner. Yeah, I just we all know the learning methods, don't we? Yeah? So I need to actually go and see somebody talking about it and then put it into action, and that's how I learn best. So I went to contact the Chimp team, and I wanted to get up there, and I went to Wortley Hall in Yorkshire with a basic knowledge of the Chimp Paradox of what I read in the book. But on that day, I think it was the 12th of December 2013 or the 13th of December 2012. It was one of them. It was snowing, and I can always remember driving there, and I distinctly remember. And that day, they told me that if you can, once that chimp takes over times five, Josh, the blood flow in the brain goes to that chimp. And once the chimp has got control of the blood flow, unless you know how to control that, a method of controlling that, Josh, then you don't stand much chance. So that's why it's five times stronger. So when you're should we go back to learning driving, for example? When your learner gets to a set of traffic lights and they're not feeling that confident and they stall, and the person behind starts blowing the horn, and the person behind that starts blowing the horn, and when the pupil just wants to give up and just get out of the car and they go into complete meltdown. Well, that is the chimp now, perceiving that as imminent danger now because everybody's blowing the horns and everything's stalling around them. So the chimp at that point then is pushing those black and white thoughts. There's no reasoning. Yeah, they're just solid black and white emotional thought. They're trying to remove the pupil out of the car. It is trying to remove the pupil out of the car. That's what it's doing. So take over, Josh. Josh, just drive me away from here. That's what it wants to get out. It's trying to get them out of the situation. So to manage it, Josh, you need to have a system in place to stop that blood flow. Mhm. Because we need to get the
How do
blood
we do
flow
that?
back. Sorry?
How do we do that? Is that where the computer comes in then?
No, it isn't really.
No.
If you got the computer program right, it wouldn't even get a look in. But nevertheless, but no, Josh, Steve, there's various methods, but Steve's the one I really like and I've used with many people is the helicopter method. First of all, when you're in that situation and the chimp has got the control of the blood flow, you must imagine a big stop button in your head. Press the stop button and just halt your thoughts for a moment. That will stop the blood flow. And then picture a helicopter coming down, picking you up, and then you look down on the situation and realize in the whole scale of life, what is it? It's a minuscule little dot. And then that, if you go through that process each time, then it slows the chimp, the blood flow halts to the chimp. We get some blood flow back to the human, and we get logic and reasoning in there. That's how he does it.
So I think I know I mentioned it at the beginning. Mindfulness, I think that's one
Mindful.
of the benefits I got from mindfulness to
Yeah.
allow me, like I do sport competitive sport away from obviously driving instructing and everything else
I
that I
have
do.
heard about it.
And the the mindfulness is that really helps with those situations.
I bet.
And what's interesting, you use the reference there, like when your student stalls at a set of traffic lights and the chimp takes over.
Hmm.
And I'm not a psychologist, but I assume the reaction that's happening in the brain and the chemicals that are bouncing around everywhere are going to be the same, really, as that tiger that's coming towards us.
Yeah.
The reaction in the brain is going to be, I assume, similar,
Yep.
and the outcome, unless we control it, we're going to be operating on the fight, flight, or freeze response
Oh,
then.
exactly. Yeah. Hmm. That's how powerful a chimp is, you see, Josh. Yeah. And it's there relevant as well, isn't it? It perceives it as danger. It perceives the horn blowing of the cars behind us and the standing up in front of an audience of people threatening, and it tries to control it.
And we see it so often in our learners.
Mhm.
Obviously, both being driving instructors, we spend a lot of our time with nervous, anxious learners driving a big metal car for the first time.
Yep. You're right, Bill.
So you can see that they're probably operating in the chimp a lot more than they'd like to be.
Totally right. There's a good example of that, Josh. You said we're just driving instructors, and when I went to that first event in Wortley Hall in Yorkshire, there was 17 people there, and we all went in a semicircle, and I was here, and the 17 went out, and they started on the left, and they started going round. I was the last one on the right, by the way, yeah. And they started going round the icebreaker session. Oh, that's one of these. I haven't been out of a car for 20 years, and all. Bloody hell. Psychologist, psychoanalyst, doctor, professor. Holy Christ, you're a driving instructor. So I call my chimp. Well, I'll get onto that in a minute. My chimp, anyway, was then kicking in and just telling me to get the hell out, get to the door before they get to you. Could just make an excuse, say you want to go to the toilet, you need to be out of this situation. You're totally out of your depth. And that was a wonderful example. And then, do you know what? They got to me and they said, Nigel. And they hooked my, holy shit, driving instructor. But and then that helped me with the chimp handler because that it was Julia, I think, one of the chimp team, and she said, "How wonderful is that?" She said, "There's not one person who sits more by a person with a chimp out of the box all day long than you in this room." And they were right because I subconsciously learned how to manage people and create a calming atmosphere in the car for the people to operate at their best, and that was quite relieving when they said that. And then I uh, I gelled into the group quite well then because I thought I do have some relevance to being here, you know. But
It sounds like a very good room to be in, though.
it
Like
was, yeah, yeah,
you don't want to be the top of the room, but if you've got psychologists and
yes,
psychoanalysts and
yeah,
everything else, the learning there must have
it
been,
was, yeah, yeah,
whether it's chimp paradox related or just understanding what they know as well.
yeah,
Because being a driving instructor, I think it can be as much of this as you want or as little as you want. You know, you can do
yes,
the basics, you can teach people to operate a mechanical vehicle,
hmm,
or you can teach people to really understand themselves and the decisions they're making.
yeah.
And when you start trying to do that, it becomes, for me so far, it's just an endless path of trying to understand.
Yeah, you're right, Pat. But if you've got that simple analogy there all the while to understand where, if you never want to be talking chimp to chimp. So if you can understand what your pupil is, where if your pupil's talking from chimp, you don't want to talk chimp back to them. You need to talk computer or human back to them to get some reasoning to get that chimp back in control, and then try to very much so to get your pupil back onto logic, or ideally computer, to get the maximum learning out of that session. And that's what really transformed my driving school once I was able to communicate with my pupils better by understanding what part of their brain was speaking to me and what they were acting from at any one time. Enabled me to keep them better within the the learning zone, shall we say. So they got maximum out of the lesson, but also helped me to present them in the test center in the best frame of mind.
I'm now seeing links to you must have had it when we get learners from other instructors.
Hmm.
They always used to shout at me. They was always moving the wheel. That's something now, as you've said that, that's maybe standing out that that instructor was maybe operating on the chimp because they were scared we was going around a roundabout too quick. They've not managed the risk, and now we've got two chimps on the go going
That's
too
it.
quick
You've
around a
got it,
roundabout.
pal. And then they spoke chimp to chimp, and then the chimp said, so then what's the chimp done then on that driving lesson? They've installed into the computer that driving lessons with this person is stressful and don't ever go back there. So that's why they make the phone call saying, I can't afford it this week. I'll give you a ring back. The chimps put that into the computer. So as the days are ticking by towards their next lesson, then they've looked at the chimps gradually looking into the computer. They're looking into their diary or on their calendar and they're thinking, oh Lord, and the chimp can see it coming. So immediately it makes the excuse not to go back. And it's the innate system working again, Josh. As you closed your eyes there, there was quite a little moment there. Do you understand? Yeah, I'm noting you, pal. Yeah,
It's all adding up when
yeah.
I don't know if you have it your way, but the challenging situations, the ones that all the learners talk about, there's a roundabout by us, and
Mhm.
everyone hates this roundabout. I don't know why, it's just a roundabout.
Yeah.
But you can see that fear building as soon as they say, oh, we're going down this way. And oh, wait a minute, that's that roundabout. And then their driving all goes to pot.
So what's the chimp trying to do? Is trying to stop them going to the roundabout. Yeah. It's just
Yeah,
blurring their thinking and trying to remove them from the situation. It's there. It's doing its job. The chimp actually has got two functions, Josh. Yeah, and that's all it's there. It's got an agenda of two functions. One, to keep the human safe, not let it get into danger, and two, to produce the next generation. Yeah, that's the only
there's
two
my
purposes.
excuse for the second one.
Sorry.
There's our excuse for the second one. It's the chimp.
Yeah, yeah. But that's what it's there for, Josh. It's there to it's ensures the human race will continue. And it's once Steve understood that system, I don't know whether you know that he started applying it to himself. He'd never done athletics in his life. And there's a thing called the Masters Games, which is the Olympics for over 40s. And he entered it and broke two world records, 200 meters,
Wow.
400 meters, I think. And last year, I think he went back again. He's nearly nearing 70 now. And I think he broke another world record last year as well in athletic running.
And that's all from being able to control the brain. I don't know what part's doing that yet, because now I'm as unaware, but I just know a bit more now as
Mhm.
to how is he achieving that through understanding, because it's called the Chimp Paradox, but I assume that it's more based on all three parts rather than just putting this chimp in a box. There's more to it than, oh, that's my chimp, switch it off.
Do you know what, Josh? So many people like yourself, they read the book and they read it a bit more than what you are. I think they go a few more pages beyond what you've done so far. And then they tend to shelve it, Josh, yeah? There's so many people, I meant I don't think a day goes by without me mentioning the chimp paradox to somebody or somewhere along the line. Oh yeah, I've read it, Nigel. Yeah, I got a chimp. And that's it. And that's a real shame. It's a real shame that they don't go further into it because the secret lies in the computer. And that's where it lies, Josh. Yeah, and he done. I don't know how Steve. I know how Steve programmed his computer because I've done mine the same, and I've done other people's the same. And in that computer lies your values, your truths of life, and your life force, and that runs at times 20. And if you're running and you're acting on the things you believe are true in life, the things you value in life, and a thing called your life force, which is in the chimp paradox if you get that far into it. And if you're acting on any of those three things, you're unstoppable. Totally unstoppable. I guarantee you, pal. And that's where you need to be if you can be on. That's how he gets the 15% out of his athletes. That's why your Chris Hoy broke the world cycling record. He was totally on the computer. I think, don't quote me, and I'll put this on the internet. Most probably people might check me out, but I think I'm not. Chris Hoy, when he broke, I think it was Beijing, because Steve went there undercover as a type of mental psychologist for him, and he broke the Olympic record on the cycle in the velodrome, and he done a whole lap. He was still on the computer. And he didn't know it was over till he seen his father waving the Union Jack. And that was he'd done a whole lap after that, I think. Something like that. There's some story like that, that he was that much operating on the computer. And well,
That's where my misconception has been. That's why I've been looking forward to this session with
mhm,
yourself
good.
because we do get it. I think I've been working more on a surface level, trying to understand the irrational, illogical part of the brain and the logical reasoning part of the brain. And it's like if we slow things down, we can make better decisions,
Yeah.
which has been working for my learners and for myself with understanding things, and that taking a moment with mindfulness to just
Mhm.
control my thoughts and bring it all back in
Yeah.
without really knowing or understanding how the computer comes into play
Mhm.
and what that can do and what that does.
Yeah. That is exactly what I notice with so many people, Josh, with the chimp paradox. They get to that part, and they try to manage the chimp, and they do success to an extent. They manage the chimp, but the secret is definitely within the computer because it runs at times 20, Josh. You don't get a an absolute look in at all. And well, just use myself an example, Josh. I wanted to expand my driving school for a long time, for years, but the chimp held me back all until I understood what was happening in my mind. It held me back, and uh, just saying that everybody wants Nigel to teach them to drive. Nobody else would. They all want Nigel. Why did you call it Nigel Richards Driving School? But once I programmed my computer to so that when my chimp looked in to understand that that didn't matter and I could do it because other people had done it under their own name, then that's how I done it. And then once I was running off the computer, that's how I got it because the chimp couldn't get a look in there. But you got to know why you're doing it. Why is such a powerful thing? Why do you want it? I was 48 years old, never run, couldn't run from one lamppost, physically obese, couldn't run from one lamppost to the next. And then I discovered why I wanted to be fitter. And that's within 2 years, I'd run the Lakeland 50-mile ultra marathon. And that 3 years ago to this very weekend coming up now, I'd done the Llangollen round, 32 miles over all the mountains in Llangollen, come seventh out of 200. But because you know, understand why you want to do it.
Does the computer take some of the emotion away or all of the emotion? How does that work? Because I know myself, I make decisions based on emotion a lot of the time. And when I remove emotion, I make better decisions when
Yes.
I just objectively look at a situation.
Yeah, you're right, Josh. No, it doesn't. I don't think it can remove all the emotion because the chimps there, there's an emotion involved in acting on your values as well, Josh. But that's more positive emotion rather than negative emotion. Do you understand? Yeah, because
Yeah.
you've got to find out in what to program the computer, Josh. You've got to find your values, and it's quite a harrowing experience. Yeah, but once you find them, God, it's worth it. And then you've got to make a physical effigy of those values, so that you're constantly reminded of the values and you keep working off your values all the while. And the chimp doesn't even get a look in. It would because it can't because the chimp the computer will shut it down running at the speed. So if you I value one of my main values is giving. I love to give and if I'm operating on giving and helping people, then I'll do anything to help somebody. Maybe that's why I'm a driving instructor, because I've always operated on my values. I really, really enjoy helping people. And if you're doing that, and the chimp doesn't even get a look, I done that run. I raised £800 for charity on that run. I'll do anything just to help people. That's a value. I love learning. I love learning. That's another value of mine. You got to get it down to five. In the chimp paradox, there was a thing called the Stone of Life Day. It doesn't do them anymore. But that's where I went on the Stone of Life Day, and that's where I created my own Stone of Life. I found my values, and that's the day that changed everything. That was in 2014. That's when everything started to change because my computer's now programmed up to manage the chimp. And actually, once that happened, then the chimp started beating its chest. then the chimp actually, I thoroughly believe the chimp will come on your side then when you start achieving it because it's like when I first seen two of my instructors in the same street at once, that was a big moment for me. And I was driving the other way and I seen two of my cars coming the other way. And then the chimp was beating its chest then, whereas then it had held me back for years.
Well, I guess we can see the relevance of that if we go back through our like evolution.
Hmm.
The fear of a larger animal was something like that fight, flight, or freeze. But we
Hmm.
had to eat. We needed to eat. So if we win one, and now we know.
If we go back to Maslow's laws of needs, isn't it? It's something like that. It's like a pyramid, isn't it? Yeah, the basic needs are at the
Yes,
bottom. Yeah, and if you need basic needs, you're going to get them. And if your family needs basic needs, you're going to get them, aren't you? Yeah, because that's when you're acting. Because you've everybody when you do when I don't think anybody I've ever seen has done the Stone of Life thing has not put family on there. I don't think anybody has. That's all you got to pick the family card because everybody. So if you're acting on something like I started running because we bought a dog. He's sitting here by the side of me now. He's old in his years now. But when we bought him when he was a puppy, I wanted to go walked him up this hill, and I was absolutely bloody knackered at the top of the hill. My daughter wanted to go running around the field with him, and I said, "I'm sorry, Al, I can't." And that was the moment for me. Then I couldn't enjoy the puppy on our time with my daughter. So that was the time when the computer kicked in, and I decided to learn to run. And so I lost 5 stone and run the Lakeland 50-mile ultramarathon. So that's what done it for me. And then and then the whole value thing is because I want to spend more time with my daughter, and now I've got a grandson. So that's why the driving school's expanded as it does, because I'm acting on my values. That's what it will give me. That's when you're acting on that. Same as Steve Peters with his athletes. Can you imagine being in the Olympic four? I love 400 meters. If I could run it before, I think it's the ultimate distance for me. Yeah. Even though I do ultra marathons, the 400 meters, I just think, can you imagine that coming into the home straight, and you're at the front and you can see the line, and suddenly you see this other runner. You're in competitive sports, so you must be able to compare this, Josh. And you can see this other runner, and you've got from here to go, and you've got 4 years of training behind you. And what do you do? And then you realize that you beat him in the Vienna qualifiers, and you're running for your country. And that's when you'll do it. Because that's much more powerful than any chimp. The chimp wouldn't even get a look in if you're running on those values. That's how powerful it is.
I can certainly see, like you say, with my sport, you've got to
Mm.
have a purpose. I mean,
Yeah.
most of the time when I go on and compete, it's
Mhm.
not at elite level, but I can, like the last competition I'd done, there was no fear. There was
No.
just, it was planned, it was structured, I trained, I had everything lined up, everything was there.
Hmm.
And I'd never felt more prepared for a situation.
Wow.
But it's been definitely eye-opening having this conversation. I'm looking forward to reading the book
Hmm.
and not just reading it, but actually taking the time to study it and see how it works for myself.
Hmm.
Because there's certainly I'm at a stage now where I need a direction. As we was talking about before recording,
Yeah.
there's a lot going on in my life at the
Yeah.
minute. And it's like
Mm.
I've got to do something for me. I need to get back training. I'm not training at the minute. And
Hmm.
obviously, as you probably know, last time we spoke, I was either preparing for my fight, I'd just
Yeah.
had it, or I was getting ready, whatever.
Yeah.
And I've not really trained since. Maybe that's because I'd peaked at that point and I'm like, yeah, I'm done now.
Mm.
But I need that structure and discipline back. And
Hmm.
there's something holding me back from getting up and going to the gym in the morning. I don't know what it is. I don't know why, but we need to find out.
I love to help.
That I just make excuses. And I don't know. I don't know why.
No?
But what I'm wanting to do now as well is my own development. Obviously, I've got my own podcast and I learn a hell of a lot on that.
Yeah.
But that's very broad
Hmm.
for a lot of it. And now it's like, let's do things for me. So I'm going to be starting this path with the Chimp Paradox after this, what we've done tonight.
Yeah.
And hopefully we can do a follow-up and
Oh, it will
I
really,
can provide a more insightful opinion on the Chimp Paradox rather
that
than
would
put
be
your
good.
chimp in a box.
Let's do that. Let you have a think about it, Josh. And I'd love to do that with you because I'd done this with Lee Thomas as well. And he got to the World Ironman finals. And he did get there after my,
Oh,
I went through it on 4 episodes on his podcast. And he did get there. So I would love to get you back in that competitive mode, Josh. That I'd be acting on a value there. Mhm.
and I need to find which value it is that I need to find my values.
That's how you find them, kid. I'll, you send me when we get off air. You send me your address. I will post these to you, but you'll have to send them back because they're the last pack I've got. They used to give them away free on the Chimp Paradox. They don't give them away anymore. All right. But I will be sending this
I
to
will
you, Mr. Holloran, right? And then when you get them, I will instruct you on what to do. Then we'll have another podcast, Bill.
I would love that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Let's find them.
Okay, then.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm seeing this now as a bit of a almost a work in progress. Like
Yeah.
let's understand that brain and
I
use
knew
it
it
for
would end up.
positive.
I would knew it wouldn't end up as one.
This will be good. People get to follow my journey on where the chimp takes me, I
That
guess,
would
or
be that.
not, as the
I
case
love
may
that
be.
job because I really, I had an Instagram account, and I lost touch with Lee because I lost the Instagram account. Again, I'm just making an excuse. I suppose I could find him, but I know he did get to the World Ironman finals. He did qualify. That was our aim, and that was what we done. And I programmed his computer. I went to one of the Chimp Paradox events and I sat down at the front. There was only one seat left, so I sat there. And ironically, he was sat opposite to me, and I didn't even know him. But he'd come there on the back of that, and then that's how we did meet each other then. But I haven't kept in touch with him. But I do need to. But I'd love to do the same for you, Josh. Especially, I love somebody who's involved in a competitive sport as well. Because I used to race cars myself. That was my competitive sport, and then I always have to have some competing in my life because I used to. My family raced dogs for years as well, so there's always a bit of sport there involved somewhere. But I'd really like to do that for you, Josh. So should we call it a day there then, pal? And we'll end that, Josh. I've thoroughly enjoyed that. I don't know how long we've been on for, but I'm sure I'll be able to edit it with your help and get it up onto my YouTube channel because I thoroughly enjoyed that, Josh. I'm I can't think of any way to spend a Friday evening more than stop talking on my favorite subject of the Chimp Paradox. Thank you very much, Josh. I really appreciate your time and I look forward to having a future episode.
Thank you very much, Nigel. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh.
How was that?
Excellent, pal. Do I stop recording now? Where's the fucking stop button? Oh,
The
so I got
same
it. Yeah.
button,
Oh, I say yes. Stop
and
recording. Yeah.
yeah,
I. What do I need to save anything, or do I just press stop recording?
you you press stop recording, and then when you end the call, it'll download the file for you. You'll just
Okay,
get a little file window. It'll
that's it. I
download it.
remember you saying last time. I really wouldn't like to lose that. Be gutted if I lost that now. So I'm going to click